Excuse me, where's everybody going?
We're going to do what we should have done months ago.
Too bloody right.
We're going to turn that Hoff bastard into mulch.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the podcast. My name is Dave, and today we're going to talk about Varushka, which is a nation at Empire, which I know very, very little about. So joining me, I've got two guests that are going to fill me in on all things Varushka. Who would like to introduce themselves first? Very decisive.
I see how it goes. I'm CJ. I play Fanya from the Seekers of the Woven Path. If you know Varushka, you might know me. Hello.
Hello, I'm Emily. I play Yulia Kazimierova Voronov. Some of you might know me from the Imperial Senate, where I'm currently Senator for Mikarova.
Very, very cool. Right. You said a lot of things there, which I didn't. There's so much to go into, even just in the way you introduced yourselves just then. Yeah.
I didn't know we were doing full Varushkan names.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry. Say again.
Oh, I didn't know we were doing full Varushkan names. I see.
Oh well. I don't know what that really means. Maybe let's start at the beginning. For someone that hasn't played Empire or interacted with Varushka, what would you say are kind of the surface level things you should know about Varushka, right? Like maybe some look and feel stuff and maybe a little bit into their personality. Emily, go ahead.
So, Varushka as a nation draws on quite a lot of inspirations from kind of Eastern European and German folk stories and fairy tales. So you're talking quite a lot of, Brothers Grimm type stuff, Baba Yaga, all those kinds of stories. So there's a lot of Slavic and Germanic influence in the nation, and a lot of stuff about spooky monsters in the woods that can and will eat your face.
Yeah, I don't think I've been to Varushka and not been told something about monsters at some point while I've been there. Like, it's a really ubiquitous Varushkan experience, is to hear about some nasty shit that's in the bushes or just terrible things. Yeah, I think how much of that is like actual lore, or how much of that is kind of like people just telling great stories about monsters and things like that?
Varushka is that if someone tells you a story, it's probably true. Because the hearth magic is all very woven up, and like Varushkans don't really, this is kind of a player-based thing, but Varushkans a lot of the time don't write stories down. Because if you write it down, it makes... So there's a big sort of like oral tradition of telling stories in Varushka. But the thing is that most of those stories come from experience, the sort of monsters and the lore. It's very that fairy tale kind of nebulous. They can take on a lot of forms. There's a lot of shapeshifters. There are some very specific ones, but there's also sort of more nebulous entities that are just kind of out there that you have to learn how to deal with on their own sort of basis. So basically, if someone tells you about something horrible in the woods, it's probably a real something horrible in the woods, and it probably did eat their friend.
Yeah, I would say I think there's a seriousness or a stoicness. Stoic is the word I should use, right? For the kind of Varushkans from the outside, it's like, I remember I went in there and I was trying to get something. I decided that I was going to sweet talk my way into it, so I was very, very like bravado about it and being like rah 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 rah. And immediately, I think it was a shopkeeper, immediately soured on me. It was like, wow, that he was very unimpressed by the kind of flowery nature of the conversation that I was trying to bring him. Much preferred and trusted a much more direct fashion of it, and it was really fun to kind of play that out in an RP setting, when usually if you're very just flamboyant and charming, people give you most of the time, you know what I mean? So yeah, do you think that's my point is, I'm rambling now, but my point was to kind of think about the kind of threat of this monster always being there makes these very stoic people, right? Like there are people that feel like they're kind of always under threat. Is that fair to say?
I'd say, yeah, that's a fair assessment. So things that it says on the wiki on the front page for Varushka is that it is a hard country. the people who live there have had to adapt to monsters that live in the woods, harsh weather because it's up in the north, and when the winters come in, you might not see other vales for months. And there's also things about placing a lot of worth in hard work, and there's something in there about by day that's for hard work and for seriousness, and only after sunset that's when you retreat to your home, you bar the door, you light the fire, you party till sunrise because you might not see the sunrise.
Yeah, I think we've got a bit of a reputation for being dour, and it is quite deserved.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely, on both counts.
At night, I swear. But there's very much that thing of like you separate the work time because you have to work, because if you don't work, you die. And then at night time, you live it up a little bit while you sort of can.
So there's no so there's a lack of day drinking in Varushka, is that what you're saying?
Oh, yes.
I don't know.
Regimented party times.
I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with that already. Like that's a definite tick in the. I'm not sure. An afternoon beverage or not? Yeah.
But we drink all night is the thing.
This is the thing, though. Whenever I've stopped in there like quite late, there's always been like you have this glorious fire pit, right? Like and I have accidentally tripped over the giant stack of wood that's next to the fire in the dark and really embarrassed myself. Yeah, I don't know why I keep telling that story, but yeah, it was so cringe. I was so embarrassed. Anyway, but round the kind of campfire, there's always like a bit of storytelling going on, some like very like quiet, sometimes mutterings in the corner, which is always fun to kind of just observe, even if you can't like hear it. That sort of thing. I don't know. Is that a fair assessment of Varushkan evening life?
That pretty much summarises every time I've been around the hearth.
Yeah, I spent quite a lot of time sort of in camp around the hearthfire because, like, people put a lot of, like, OC effort into writing really, really good stories and really, really good music and telling them really, really well. And so, like, you get these amazing immersive experiences.
I've heard some incredible, really beautifully told stories in and around the hearthfire or in people's camps after dark.
How big is Varushka as a nation? I have no idea where it is off. If you're going to say like, Wintermark is the biggest, Navarra is the second biggest, and Urizen are like way, way, way down at the bottom, with both of them being very unimpressed by that joke.
I think we're the second smallest of them.
Yeah, we are. We're often
just
actually
above the orcs.
So
Orcs the smallest. I don't know. I don't know.
Orcs are by far the smallest of if I remember rightly, but
last I checked.
Yeah, in terms of our force weightings on the field, for instance, we're usually the smallest, like smaller than Urizen in terms of what we field for battle.
Yeah.
In terms of nation size, I'd say about the same as Urizen.
Probably. That's
interesting.
Like that.
One of the things that we were talking about I was talking to Pud, who was a winter marker just before you guys. And I don't know when that episode's going to be released, so I might put that out of order. Never mind. Let's move on. But he was saying how in Wintermark there's a very kind of like you can just spend all your time in Wintermark if you need to. You can play the game for 3 years and never need to leave the Wintermark camp because there's such a giant community. But from what you guys are telling me there, maybe even in a smaller nation, you still have a kind of you're quite happy to play within your own nation more than go out.
I think, Sudo, you could probably speak on this better because I spent remarkably little time in the Varushkan camp.
To be fair, you're off doing politics and stuff. I don't have such
I made foolish choices and decided to go in politic.
I think politics is you are... People that get into politics are suckers for punishment. It's just brutal how much people are like. Even I harassed you for votes, right? And then it's just like when it actually comes down to it, it's just horrendous. Like, sorry, just to go sidetrack on the political game. My God, like if you
I did 4 years in conclave before I did Senate, so
you are just
I'm a real
brave one.
You're a masochist. Oh my goodness, what's wrong with you? Seek help.
know.
Oh my goodness, that is, brutal. Absolutely.
I love it, but I appreciate it is not for everybody.
Yeah, I think it was my kind of little brush into that political game. It's very full on. It spends the entire weekend playing it. There's a lot at stake, and an awful lot of people, they're kind of whatever's gone wrong for their weekend or whatever they want to happen for their weekend can often be channeled straight down into one senator who's just on their way between meetings to go and do something else. And yeah, it's a rough gig. Yeah, impressive.
Sounds like a struggle, to be honest.
Here's a question: How do you elect a senator in Varushka and other stuff
Our
like?
one's fun.
I love our senatorial elections.
Our one's really
I
fun.
love them so much. It's creepy as anything. So, the way that our senatorial elections work, you get your candidates, and we're all sat by the hearth, waiting our turn to go and speak before the Wise Ones Council, who are all gathered in one tent. One of the egregores comes out the tent and beckons you forth to come and speak, and you are put into the tent. Arrayed before you are the Wise Ones Council. Most of them are probably wearing blindfolds. You can still tell that they are staring into your soul. And then you're asked 3 questions. Traditionally, it's the children of the nation who ask the questions. When I went, there weren't enough kids around at the event. So I got asked by the egregores.
Hold on,
instead.
do you prep the kids? Are you like, okay, you're gonna ask them about really complicated socio-economic issues, okay? Like, and I want you to get like, and then they like stand there and go, what do you think about Varushka's trade interests in this area? Do you think that will be a worthwhile investment, long time, short term, or medium term, whatever? Like those sort of questions.
No, we get riddles.
Yeah.
Oh for God, I'm out. I'm never joining Varushka. I think we're under 10 minutes and I'm definitely out of Varushka already. No day drinking, no there's riddles.
Yeah.
Can you give an example of a riddle, or is that
I can give an example of one.
Much?
I can give an example of one that I got asked when I went, which was actually my favourite for one of the 3 that I was asked. It was, you're walking through the forest, and then suddenly the path disappears underneath your feet. You have the choice of having either a cloak, a staff, or a hunk of bread. Which do you choose, and why?
Wow.
It's a really good one,
CJ,
isn't it?
Would you like to take this one, or?
I did actually run for senator for a bit of a laugh because I wanted to know what Wise Council interrogating you was like.
It sounds awesome.
It's scary. It's frightening.
It's so scary.
It sounds
it's
awesome.
So cool.
I
but
think
it's
I'd like
scary
really
as anything.
cool, though.
The only way I'd like to do it is if I wasn't actually that interested in becoming a senator. Like, if I actually cared, I would suck so bad. And I think I would go for cloak, because it can keep me warm and covered. I can sleep in it, which will keep me comfortable and well rested. And staying alert and fresh is the most important thing. So then I can survive, and that's what will be my answer. Yeah, I'll even repeat survive a few times as well, loudly.
Yeah,
Probably
fair
go
enough.
for staff so I could find the path again, but don't know whether that's.
And defend yourself.
That's the answer. That's the answer I gave. I went with staff for can use it to find the path again. Most versatile of the 3. Can use it as a defensive weapon if need be.
Yeah.
I think I'm
So
quite
it
a
worked.
sedentary animal generally, and therefore like the instinct to curl up, even if it's just to die comfortably, is probably more and therefore I shouldn't be a senator in Varushka. Yeah. Can you just tell me like what were your preconceptions before joining Varushka, and how maybe they were differed from maybe how you've played the game or experienced it?
Quite different perspectives on this, because I actually came into Varushka brand new to the hobby. I was running entirely off of what the wiki said. My conceptions of it were drastically different from in play, because it was partially that I didn't know how to LARP, and partially that the wiki had not been updated in quite some time, and that a lot of player kind of participation in world building had happened in that time. So I got to Varushka, and I went in someone's tent, and they were like, would you like some hospitality? And being a Brit, I was like, no thank you. I'm alright, I'm fine, thanks. which you're not meant to do in Varushka, because you offer hospitality to creatures that show up at your door, and if they take it, they are bound by the rules of hospitality, be they human or monster. So if something doesn't take hospitality, suddenly it's very, should I get my sword? Are we going to have a problem?
Is there anything obvious I should know about the rules of, hanging out or whatever? Like you just said, you agree to rules. Is there anything that I should know about if I was going to visit Varushka?
Someone offers you hospitality, just take it. Just don't question it. Just take it. It's you're a human. You're fine. Just take it.
That's
Generally, the rules of hospitality kind of mean, if you've taken someone's food or drink, then you have effectively agreed to behave as a guest.
Yeah, and you have also.
But conversely, the person who's given it to you is bound to treat you as a guest.
Yeah, it's that very fairy tale thing of like, you tell them stories until sunrise, and then they leave because you treated them as a guest, and they were forced to treat you as a guest in return, and you kind of strike that bargain, and you sort of have that balance there.
So is there do you have just all right, I'm going to go to Empire this weekend. I need to have treats and drinks just on standby. Yeah, you're both they're both nodding, by the way. Yeah.
We've got a cheese board.
Oh yeah, audio medium. Yes.
Yes.
yeah, it's how podcasts work. It's tough to get around. But yeah, so any Varushkan treats that you can recommend for people to make, maybe? I don't know.
Pies are quite a famous one that go around the Varushkan camp. They get sold. Honey is a big Varushkan thing, so anything made with honey, sort of baked treats, because honey is a sign of prosperity. I had these rather horrible salty sweets in a tent as hospitality once, and I was not warned what they were. Luckily, I'm very good at keeping a straight face.
You had the slug eggs, didn't you?
Oh, I did have a slug egg, yeah.
I assume they didn't tell you this is a slug egg.
God,
Would
no.
you like one?
Well,
slug eggs.
Yeah, slug eggs, and I took one anyway, so that's really on me.
Was it a rose by any other name? Would it smell as sweet or whatever? I think slug eggs have got a big disadvantage in the preconception. They would have to be fucking amazing for people to actually admit they're eating them.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're talking about preconceptions.
Yeah, so basically it was just arriving on the field, I found out very, very quickly that a lot of stuff had happened in play that was not on the wiki. But in terms of the themes of the nation, it was pretty much what I expected. It all lined up. It was just figuring out how to sort of insert myself into those themes and learn to kind of play with those more interpretive aspects of the nation, like the storytelling thing, the sort of very nebulous nature of the world of Varushka itself and the sort of ways you can interpret that. But yeah, I think I had too much of a preconception coming in because I'd never done it before. So I was pretty much going off of what was on the wiki and then very quickly learned that immersion is different.
Right. Emily, do you want to maybe give some of your preconceptions and how they were maybe differed?
So I came into Varushka already being quite familiar with the nation, with how it played out on the field, and also quite familiar with Empire and also with LARP. So by the time I started in Varushka, I'd been doing LARP for 8 or 9 years at that point. And I'd been doing Empire for about 5. So I was quite familiar with how things worked on the field in practice in general. And as my previous character, I'd spent quite a lot of time in Varushka, had quite a lot of friends in Varushka, even married a Varushkan as my previous character. So there's quite a lot of knowledge already of how it worked in the field compared to, what was on the wiki and things like that. So yeah, I didn't really come in with any preconceptions, as it were. It's more just a kind of, okay, I know what this nation is like. I would like to play it from the inside now.
Yeah, and you say it's one of the smaller groups. Does that mean that there's... Because from what I understand, some of the larger nations have a problem where sometimes you can feel a bit out of the main plot. I'm saying this with what are they called? Quote marks, because it's hard to define what your game is, right? But if a nation has 50 people compared to 200 people, right, it's going to be probably easier to get selected for however many Senate seats there are, or at least you can have more of a direct aspect on those people, right? I think that's one of the things that's maybe appealing about a smaller nation, although I'm not sure how that would. What do you think? Like, does that play that way in the field? Like,
I think so. I think we've got a really good community spirit in Varushka, like on both an OC and an IC level. Because like even the way we set up the camp is basically a ring of tents around the hearthfire, and all the tents on the sort of main fire are group tents with groups that you can interact with and that like want to interact with visitors and tend to have some sort of like position in the nation.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I've never like I've seen that, but never cottoned on to what I was actually looking at, and it's pretty cool how it feels like definitely one continuous like almost camp itself. It like literally is, but like we're with Navarre where I camp, it's very clearly this is our group and this is this group and this is this group. And it's very rare that you'd find like a cluster of tents together like that as a nation. In fact, there's a guy there who has like a wooden, how do you describe it? Like
the Vardo.
The Vardo. It's a wonderful little wooden like cart type thing, right? And it's got a door on the back, like a little caravan-y type. It's just really cool. Like it's one of the best immersion pieces of kit terrain that you can get I think at Empire. I don't know if you know that guy or not. You're all nodding. So
yeah, he's always around.
Yeah, we know that guy.
Yeah, we know that guy.
He's cool. Yeah, we know him.
Yeah, no big deal.
Yeah, whatever. He's just like, psh, I talk to him all the time, so it's not even like a big deal. Was there any kind of recommendations you have for people that are maybe coming into the nation, things they should do? Like, obviously, we usually caveat most things with read a couple of pages on your Empire Nation brief. That should give you a good quick summary of what's going on. And there's a couple of pages of rules on the wiki. But then most of the time you can just kind of join. But is there anything that you would specifically say that you should kind of expect or look forward to if you're joining Varushka?
I think be afraid of us because everyone's so lovely out of character, and like for a new player I would say coming on the Thursday and getting to know people out of character while like camps being set up and stuff is a really, really good idea, because people play some real spooky characters and people play some very angry characters and some very sort of like dour, intense characters, and I think that can feel a bit intimidating. But all of those people internally are like, I want to roleplay with you. I want to roleplay with you. I want to roleplay with you. I want to play the game with you. And like, it is a really, really lovely nation full of really, really lovely people. We just have quite a scary brief and people like playing that brief. But it's just like, don't get intimidated. If someone is spooky at you, be spooky right back. Like, don't be afraid to just really jump right in, because people are actually quite friendly. And people want to roleplay with you. They just maybe want to do it in a bit of a spooky, intense way.
Say another thing that is quite a good way of getting into things quite quickly as a new player to the nation. We have that central hearth, spend time around it, and you'll end up speaking to a wide variety of people. Like, that's how I've met most people in the nation that I hadn't already established some kind of link with.
Yeah.
And through that, I've met most people in the nation by just hanging around the hearthfire when I can.
Yeah,
and
like,
chatting to people.
People will hand out songbooks, they'll hand out storybooks. You'll get the best feel for the nation by just sitting around the hearthfire and listening to people's stories. And like, you can do that day or night. Like, people are always around.
Mm.
Yeah.
And also
go ahead.
And it's also at the start of the event, what we tend to have, and kind of a similar way to how Wintermark have their moot. We have a little kind of, everybody gathers around the hearthfire at time in. We'll have a chat, ask if there's anybody who's new to Anvil, who might want to step forward, introduce themselves, let people know what they're interested in. And especially if you say you're interested in magic, then suddenly out of nowhere, a bunch of Volhovs will just appear and like whisk you away to be their apprentice on some spooky nonsense.
Literally. It's really good actually, because I think there's been a lot more of initiative at recent events from these sort of egregores to have that specific point of welcoming new players to the nation and introducing them to people who are like gonna have the sort of game that they want. Like, my group is a sect. We have the preceptor of our national assembly in the sect. So all the people who are interested in the religion game get just funneled towards us, and it's great, and we love them.
Sorry, what is a sec?
Oh, we're just a religious group, basically.
Oh, you're
Sect.
literally just sect. Yeah, okay. So you're like a not a cult, obviously. Not a cult. No, right? This is another thing. There's lots of things. What's cool about Empire is there's loads of stuff in the game that like isn't a cult, and like just because you have to mention it isn't a cult doesn't mean that you should be worried about it being culty. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of very sensitive people out there. So just to be clear that Empire isn't a cult and it doesn't have smaller cults within it made up of occultists that are
Yeah, definitely not.
It does seem, how do I word this? Like from what you've explained, like it's definitely not a cult though. Okay, yeah, cool. Sorry, I was interrupting. What were you saying about your? So when you have in Navarre, we have stridings and steadings as our groups. Okay, can you just talk to me about like a Varushkan household or banner or whatever it might be, and maybe some of the hierarchy and some of the like archetypes that you might expect within that? You two are both so polite, by the way. Every time that they kind of wait for each other. Okay, CJ, you're gonna go, and then Emily, you're gonna like go straight in afterwards. Okay, like,
I'm so sorry.
No, it's great. It's so painfully English, and I'm the same, and it's fun. It's fun just to watch you both like hesitate on it. But okay, let's like gloves off. Let's go, just way on in. So CJ, you're up, and then Emily immediately afterwards, you're gonna fire in. Okay, ready? Let's go.
One is probably the Vale, which is basically the town that you're from. So Vales and Varushkas are just little settlements. They can be very small, they can be a bit bigger. They tend to be relatively isolated just because of the geography of the nation. And the fun thing about your Vale is because of the sort of isolated nature of it, if you're coming in and you're starting a group, you can have your own unique traditions that are unique to your Vale and can be a little bit weird. And that's just a thing about your Vale, and people can't really question it. Within that, you have the sort of top of the Vale, the leader is the Boyar. So just the one who runs it basically is responsible for keeping people safe, for making deals with sovereigns, which is a whole thing that we'll get into in a minute, and for just generally kind of managing the sort of day-to-day running of the Vale, managing all the people within it, and taking advice from some of the other varieties of people.
Get in there, Emily. Let's go. Come on.
I'm going. Yeah, so as well as having the Boyar, who's the town's leader or village's leader, you'll also have the Wise Ones, who I mentioned earlier in terms of the Senate elections, but the Wise Ones are kind of the elders of your town or your village. Varushka places a lot of emphasis on respecting the wisdom of your elders because they've survived the wilderness this long. They're gonna have learned something about how the world works, how to manage the monsters and the darkness and the cold. So there's a lot you can learn from their experiences.
Can we just say, should I just ask, can you just select that as an archetype, the Wise Ones, or do you basically just be of a certain age and then you're like, hey, I'm old, I'm wise, like boom?
You can just select it because the sort of qualification for being a wise one is people treating you like a wise one. So if people think you're wise and they come to you for advice, then you are a wise one, effectively. It's sort of something that is bestowed upon you by other people seeking it out. So if that's the type of character you want to play, you can just show up and be like, I'm the wise one of my Vale, and my Boyar listens to everything I say.
That's cool. That's really cool. What's next on the list?
Talk about Volhovs?
Yeah, Volhovs. I think the next one down on the list would probably be Schlachter next.
Oh, yeah, it would be Schlachter.
In terms of the hierarchy. So you have
Schlachter next.
Schlachter. So yeah, you have the boyar who's the leader of the Vale, the wise ones who are actually the ones who lead the Vale, because you listen to your elders. And then you have the Schlachter, who are kind of the soldiers. Those are your warrior types, the ones who will go out and defend your Vale in a more direct fashion with axe and shield.
Like monster hunters fall into that, I'm assuming, as well, or is that?
No, monster hunters. I'd say monster hunters
More wardens.
come under wardens who
really.
are separate archetype.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
spoilers. Okay, cool. Right.
Yeah.
We'll come on to
Schlachter,
wardens in a sec.
Varushka definitely places a big emphasis on solving your problems with words and with being clever and with tricks, over necessarily using brute force. But also, Varushkans are not naive and know that brute force does need to be used. We have armies, we have warriors in the Vales. Those sort of warriors and people who are that brute force are the Schlachter, basically.
But yeah, so coming off of that, so yeah, you have the Schlachter who deal with things in that kind of quite direct brute force fashion. Then you have the wardens who tend to be, that's where your monster hunters will come in. People who generally can deal with less direct threats to the Vales, I'd say.
Yeah. It's
And more of the kind of spooky supernatural nonsense and protecting people from that.
Yeah, wardens will research the monsters as much as they will actually physically fight them. They will sort of study how to get around them and sort them out without necessarily having to risk lives.
Like a James Bond, Val Helsing type vibe.
It's very Van Helsing.
Van Helsing, yeah. I'd say Van Helsing would be a good example of somebody who's quite wardeny, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, why? But why does anyone choose anything that isn't a warden, though?
I can't answer that. I'm a warden.
I'm not a warden, but
Oh.
that's just because I like medicine, and so I wanted to be a physic.
Okay, fair.
I guess I could be a physic warden, but
Oh my god, I did an episode with Ellie from the hospital a couple of episodes ago, and oh my god, like, I'm so hyped for the medicine game, by the way, after spending...
it's great fun.
It sounds incredible. Like, I'm that close to maybe next character. I'm talking too much already. It could, maybe. I'll see how it goes. But yeah, so...
Join us.
Yeah, I know, it's not a cult, though, so that's cool. Right.
Empire, not a cult.
So after Wardens, then Healers?
Archetype for healer.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably Volhov's next, which you're probably more qualified to speak on as someone who's done Magic game a bit more.
Yeah, so one of the magician archetypes in Varushka. So wardens will quite often do things with magic, but then you also have the Volhovs, who are the more kind of classic magician types who will go around, collecting knowledge and, in some people's opinions, causing trouble. In some people's opinions, solving trouble. Bit of column A, bit of column B for a lot of Volhovs, really.
Yeah, they're very that sort of, like, they quite often work solo. They just kind of are a bit spooky. They wear a really big hat. They've got that sort of, like, lurking over a staff, carrying forbidden knowledge kind of a vibe.
Sort of person that might bump into you, say weird shit when you go to a bar or something. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
yeah.
Occult problem solvers is what the wiki describes them as. I've just
A cult
gonna
problem
check that.
solver. Interesting.
but the first sentence on Volhovs on the Varushkan wiki. Varushkan Volhov are occult problem solvers who make a study of supernatural powers to better understand and defend against them.
I want to have a problem that requires me coming to Varushka now. Like, I'm not even like the day drinking. Obviously, it's an issue. We'll talk about that. But like, I think coming in, like, asking for help about something supernatural or monster related in Varushka sounds like a really fun afternoon. Like a really fun afternoon.
We get some great problems coming
We
through.
really do.
I had to erase somebody's memory once because he'd been cursed in such a way that if I didn't erase his memory, he would have turned into basically a werewolf once the sun went down.
So he's consciously, if he was aware he was going to become a werewolf, it would happen. Like he manifests his own werewolfness.
It's more the curse was kind of lingering in his memory. So if I erased his memory, then the curse would have gone away. Whereas if I didn't erase his memory, then he'd still be a werewolf.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. That's cool. Right. Volhoves, that was the magic users, the
Volhoves.
occult problem solvers that they are. That's very what am I thinking of? What's the big red guy? He's like a superhero but not something boy, Hellboy with the kind of like, you know, the occult steampunk vibe. In fact, there is like, I've never seen anything like steampunk in Varushka, but if there was gonna be a nation that I would be like, hey, they've got that kind of cool, they're smartly dressed, they're like, there's lots of cool stuff going on, trinkets, I would think of Varushka. I don't know. Yeah, that's probably not right.
I'd say we're a bit too fairy tale to that steampunk vibe.
Tale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brothers Grimmy.
It's very Brothers Grimm.
Very.
Yeah. Very kind of fatalistic as well. I think that's one word I've used very often when I've talked about nations. I probably sound like I'm repeating myself, but each time it's like trying to talk about the different nations and being like, we end up describing how they cross over a lot. And it's quite interesting how that's what we describe when actually what we're trying to describe and how different they are, right? And we might say, the marchers are very dour. But when I think about how dour the marchers are and I think about how dour Varushka are, they're very different ways, right? Yeah. But you could see how there are similarities between those two nations in some aspects, right? Whereas they are very different from like Wintermark, for example, right? Like that would be a very different thing. Whereas you could describe some Wintermarkers as dour. I don't know. Maybe overusing the word at this stage. I'm not sure.
I think we win on dourness. If it's a competition.
Well, the sun's up, definitely.
Oh, for sure.
It's also one thing I've noticed. A lot of the things that I've asked people, they've tried to defend themselves by saying, we're really not that dour. Whereas you guys are like doubling down 100% on it. Like, yes. If anyone wants to out-dour us, we will dour the shit out of people. We'll make you feel so miserable in our camp, you know? Like... Okay.
I don't really have much of a comeback to that, other than you won't feel miserable in our camp.
Yeah.
Just maybe on edge.
Yeah.
That's how it is. Like furtive glances to each other and people around the camp or whatever when you're there at night, it's weird, and like they'll whisper something to someone else and then go off and do something. And it's completely unrelated to you probably, but you're still aware of it. You know, it's fun.
Yeah.
Is it fun? I don't know.
I'm glad the vibe is coming across. I think it's fun.
I think it's great fun.
Okay, have we been through all the architects for all the different?
You've got the
No, have we been through all the archetypes?
We've so far had Boyars. We've had Wise Ones. We've had Zophoni, Slackers, and Wardens.
Slackers.
Oh,
don't call them that to
No,
their
that's
face.
their name now. Renaming all the Schlachter.
The Slackers, the lazy people that become soldiers. You know, those lot. You know.
See, Boyards, Wise Ones, Volhov, Schlachter, Wardens. We haven't covered Zena yet, the storytellers.
Oh yeah. To be fair, we had a bit of a dearth of stanza until recently.
Yeah, we have got a few now, but storytellers are a separate archetype.
Yeah.
In Varushka because of that kind of tradition of learning from stories.
Yeah, hold the phone
that
right
kind
now.
of oral tradition.
I'm suddenly interested. Please tell me everything there is about being a Vena. That sounds awesome. That sounds very me.
Zena. It's spelled Stzena. I'm probably still pronouncing it wrong.
I think it's Stenza.
I thought that the Z was earlier.
Possible. I'm not looking at the wiki, so you've probably got it wrong.
I've got the wiki open. Let me.
I think I would love to see on every single link on the Empire wiki to have, the button that says "sounds like," and then you push the button, and then it just reads it for you.
Honestly.
Would be so good. I think that's one of the things that's most off-putting as a new player, is that you'll be like, you have this big impassioned thing that you really care about because you read about it on the wiki, and then you come to say it, and then you'll say it completely wrong. What did we describe? Jotun?
The Jotun?
Jotun, yeah. Jotun. We pronounced it wrong for a long time. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's pronounced them fuckers over there.
Yeah, exactly.
Those boring bastards that are into honor. You know what I mean? Like, oh my god. Let's have another honor fight. You know what I mean? Like, where are the stakes, people? Let's go. Let's kick off.
It's not how you win a war,
Dog
is it?
food, as the Iron Helms call them.
See, this is... Navarre have a thing where it's like, you can't betray your enemy. And it's one of those, what's great about the wiki, when you meditate on a one line thing about your nation, you're like, but you can't betray an enemy.
And this is why Varushka and Navarre get along on the battlefield.
Very much so. I think we just found some very common ground there.
That sense of pragmatism is, I think, something that unites our two nations.
But they are the enemy, right? So
exactly.
Why wouldn't we do everything in our power to exterminate every single one of them as fast as we can, as quickly and brutally as we can? Yeah,
I believe that's called winning.
Yeah, I think that I don't know what you guys are here to do, but we're here to win. You know what I mean? By crushing our enemies in the most brutal fashion possibly. I consider their laments when they're dying to be a good psychological warfare technique to warn their fellows to surrender now and give up hope. Right? Like this is how you wage war. That honor stuff. Ugh. Ugh. Gross. Right. So. The storytellers sound awesome, and that's all you kind of do is just wander around telling stories to people?
As the storytellers. So the Stenza are the sort of bards of the nation, so it kind of covers music to an extent as well, but it also covers like story, poetry, plays, and a lot of stories in Varushka are morality tales, oftentimes wrapped up in the religion of Empire, but not always. They tend to just be little morality stories about not getting eaten, or usually the person in them gets eaten, but the person in them gets eaten because they messed up in some way. And you can learn from their tale and learn not to do that.
Yeah, I like that sort of story. In fact, the stories that I've got ready and told are kind of these silly morality, silly. They're not silly. They're really effective. I shouldn't have ever used the word silly there. They're really nice little. What's nice about the way is if you look down the different virtues. Oh my god, I've been out of the game too long. And you can usually find one that you can tell a story with and have fun with the definition of it, right? So there's lots of ways to interpret maybe certain things, right? And you can twist them to your own perverted imaginings if you want to, right?
Yeah. The other thing that the Stazena do quite a lot of is, so we talked earlier about that kind of dichotomy between how Varushkans are by day is hard work, dour, serious. If you don't do the work, you will not see through the winter and will die horribly. Whereas by night, celebrate because who knows whether you'll live to see another dawn.
What does that? How do you roleplay that as a senator? If you don't mind me asking, is that part of is this something that you think about while you're in game?
Absolutely, yeah. I've had a lot of conversations with various people where I've basically grumbled extensively about how the rest of the Empire don't see things the same way, and why do they have to have Senate meetings after dark? That's not how things work. And so I get very grumpy about having to go to late night Senate sessions because have you not seen that the sun's down? Could you not have had this earlier when it was work time?
I like how There's always this weird bleed between. There are certain things that Navarre do that, and I think you just did it just then, where you're pissed off about it, but like that line between yourself and the law of your nation really starts to blur, and like you'll take offense at something. Like I remember I shook a guy's hand in Eurozen. Other people got offended on his behalf, right? Like they were really pissed, and I was a little bit drunk, and I was doing it for effect, right? I knew the guy, and I was literally just doing it because it was funny, right? The guy that doesn't learn to not shake his hand or whatever, you know. But man, that it was like people got really pissed off on his behalf. It was amazing. But,
you know, with the handshakes in Urizen, you can do some quite good things with them, because my previous character was an Urizen, but also as my current character, there have been interactions with Urizeni where literally all the physical contact was a handshake, but you can play that in such a way as to be incredibly meaningful. Like somebody offered my current Varushkan their hand as a handshake, and I looked at the hand and looked at them, and it was kind of like, I know this is a serious thing for you people. Are you sure? Sort of non-verbal exchange, and then he kind of nodded, and I was like, okay then.
In fact, I think an awful lot of my interaction with the Varushkan that I shook his hand was about, we might be very different people, but we can still, come to an understanding type vibe. But I think it's interesting from the external that they might not have taken it that way. Yeah. I think I need to get down Varushka more, and I think it's interesting you talk about it changing when the sun goes down. I think that's true across the camp. But Varushka, I think that giant fire pit at night is very... and like you said, the shadowy figures around it, the conversations, the mutterings of story, it's very vivid in my mind, actually, and I wish I could... I'm looking forward to going back there again very soon, basically.
Yeah, we also have a very clear dividing point when it switches from day mode to night mode, which is the warding of the camp. Which happens so every evening when it gets to sunset, the wardens of Varushka will ward the camp. It's kind of a ritual process. It's not using actual ritual magic; it's a half magic.
To be fair,
thing.
now it does. I think we've got.
Oh yes, we do have the posters now, don't we? When we do actually put up, I can't remember which one to use.
Oh god, I always forget their name because they're referencing some old magical person whose name I can't remember. Ovens, but they do a proper ritual magic warding as well.
What? So when the sun, so the sun's coming down. It's sunset. There's a term for it. Oh my god, yes, it's sunset. This coven comes out. They start doing something, and then there's a kind of actual cue for everyone to kind of change the vibe inside the camp.
Well, it starts with
so you have
action. Like a warden will come out ringing a big bell and be like, "It's time to ward the camp. Everyone, get ready. Get your noise-making stuff. Get ready to ward the camp." And
so you have you'll have the coven doing the ritual magic that we now have going, but the main kind of focus of it, and you might have seen it yourself because the warding of the camp is noisy as hell, and it's the wardens and anybody who wants to join in really go and walk round the perimeter of the camp, singing, making noise, ringing bells, banging drums, anything we've got, pots and pans, you name it. Bring it out, make noise to scare the monsters away.
I've heard this and never understood what it was because I've never been there. Oh, that's what it is. So cool.
That's the weird noisy Varushkan thing that happens every night.
Whenever you just hear a bunch of yelling at sunset, it's us. Sorry.
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love that. And it's to scare off the monsters and keep everyone safe so you can party.
Yeah, and that's the cue to switch from day mode to night mode.
That's another thing that I'd really recommend new players do. Be in the camp at sunset. Do the warding.
Yeah, join in with the warding. Even if you're not a warden, do it.
It's so good, it's so immersive, and afterwards people will just gather around the hearth fire and start talking and singing and telling stories and sharing drinks. It's really, really wonderful.
Man, that sounds like a really good example of and remember, Empire isn't a cult, but there are a few things that really lock people into their nation, right? And there's a kind of indoctrination that sounds very much like one of those things where you all do an action and then feel a little bit closer together as a nation. You know, I love that. I dig it. It's really fun to do, unless people start like disappearing, which I've heard can happen in Varushka. What?
Oh, people, will go missing, and sometimes something awful will show up on the outside of the wards, and it will ask to be let in, and you will not let it in.
Or sometimes you invite it in and go, yes, of course, please, have
Yeah.
a seat, have a drink.
Exactly.
Make yourself warm by the fire, honoured guest.
Yeah, I'm not.
It's all about reading the situation.
Yeah, which I don't think I can do. Which
the situation.
I think honestly, like that one interaction when I was in, because I've been quite successful in chatting to people when I've been to Varushka before, but that one cold interaction I had was really weird, and it was I said it's like in a good way. Like I was expecting an outcome, and like it was a very different outcome from what I was expecting. And then I realized like the whole camp was paying attention to what was happening there, and it was like a little off-putting. And in fact, I think it was coming down to night. It was towards the end of the day. Like it was coming towards sunset. It wasn't I don't think it was dark at the point.
Mm-hmm.
That's very interesting. Huh. Anyway, sorry, I'm rambling by myself at this stage. So let's get back onto the topic of. So we've been through the archetypes. Is there any kind of like yearly celebrations or events that happen at Varushka that maybe
we've got some fun ones.
Yeah, I really like our festivals that we have.
Yeah. Should we just sort of go in order? Start with winter?
Yeah, let's start with winter.
Yeah. Winter Festival is the Feast of the Loom, which is kind of our turning of the year festival. And Varushkans have a very sort of stoic attitude towards death, because death happens quite a lot. And if you don't have quite a sort of stoic attitude towards that, it can become overwhelming. Feast of the Loom is also the time to mourn. So it's the time when you sing songs and you tell stories about all of your fallen from that year, and you share them around the hearthfire, and you kind of keep their memory alive in that way. And also it's just sort of generally a bonding time, a time to sort of come together as a nation, reflect on the year past, think about the year moving forward, and kind of have that funeral that you don't necessarily get time for all the time in a nation where things are so kind of rough all of the time.
Is it Zariah in spring?
Yeah, it's already in spring.
Our spring festival is the Feast of Zariah. Zariah is a Varushkan paragon. She's a paragon of wisdom. And we celebrate her and her life in spring. And this, again, is something you might have seen, because it's another very visible, very loud Varushkan thing, where we bring out this giant puppet, I suppose, of Zariah. Yeah, you've got somebody controlling the arms and the hands.
Yeah.
And we have a big parade around the whole of the Empire camp with this giant Zariah puppet.
I think we've seen it, but been
Yeah,
busy,
it's a
and it's
bit
one of
creepy.
those. It's one of those Empire things that you go, did you just see that? And they're like, yeah, we'll better be on getting to do whatever we're doing and not stop for whatever the hell that crazy shit was back there, you know? Yeah, exactly. And everyone's playing it straight, and it's like you're carrying this giant weird
thing with wavy hands. Yeah.
Do you burn him?
No, we don't. No,
We love
she's a
her.
paragon.
I
love her.
Sorry, there was assumptions.
The other thing that happens at the Zariah parade, one person takes on the role of the wolf and is chased out of the camp.
Do you dress them up?
They get a mask, and there's sort of a hearth magic-y ritual to kind of imbue them with the spirits of the wolves and the monsters of Varushka, and they kind of take on that aspect and represent that aspect. And everyone else, along with Zoria, kind of drive them out.
Okay, you guys are weirdos, all right?
Yeah, we are.
Yes, great, we love it.
I love Varushka for how weird its ritual, weird and ritualistic a place it is. I absolutely adore that aspect of it. But yeah, so you chase the wolf chase goes around with the parade, And you again, like the warden, you bring noisemakers, you bring drums, you bring songs, you yell, you scream, you ring bells, and chase off the wolf as it stalks the parade.
This is insane, and I love it. It's so good. And is that? Did you say that's the spring one?
That's our spring one, yeah.
And what time of day is it?
Set, because it's kind of part of the warding usually, isn't it? Because it's effectively.
It's usually just before the warding, isn't it?
Yeah, because they do.
We usually have the Zoriah parade, then ward the camp straight after,
Yeah,
don't we?
because it's almost a warding of all of Anvil, because you are chasing the wolf out as the parade goes around all of Anvil. So it's almost that, and then you go into the warding of the Varushka camp specifically.
I love this. I love the playing out of something symbolic and like it being very representative. There's something weirdly effective in that stuff that I really don't understand, but I find fascinating. And when you actually are part of it, it can become quite a bonding experience. But Empire isn't a cult, so yeah.
That's a cool one.
Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds like absolutely fascinating. Is there any other like yearly activities that maybe go down that people should maybe check out or maybe not?
Yeah, autumn we have the night market.
Yes.
Oh, I've been there.
The winter market and the night market.
I think I've been to the winter market.
Mm.
I heard
The
about
winter market is
the
the winter market is by day. The night market, unsurprisingly, is what the winter market turns into by night.
Yeah, I think I've been there during the daytime, but things were
That would
kind
be
of
the winter
winding
market
down.
then.
Yeah, I think so. And does everyone just bring something to sell then? How does that work?
Yeah, the sort of idea behind it is that you are preparing for the winter, so it's a time when the Vales come together, they trade, you pick up any sort of goods that you need to kind of survive in the winter. At Anvil, it manifests more as just people selling their crafts, selling drinks, selling food, kind of all sorts. I usually do some portraits. That's what I kind of sell at the market. Like, everyone kind of has their own little thing.
Portraits? Yeah. That's awesome. Sorry, Emily, please continue. I get stuck on that. Let's move on.
Yeah, but yeah, the concept behind the winter market is that it is stocking up for the winter, because when the snow comes, you don't know when you can when you might next be able to get out for supplies.
Yeah.
So you stock up on anything you might need to see you through until the snows have melted enough that you can use the roads again.
Yeah.
But then you have the night market, and that's when kind of more of a party atmosphere comes out, where, you know, instead of being practical items necessarily, you're more likely to have, you know, the drinks and stuff start coming out, the songs start to come out, and also sometimes some of the more unusual items, more magical things in nature.
And while during the day market the currency is usually coin, at night that might change and the currency might become things like a story or a memory.
Oh, wow.
There's usually somebody doing fortune telling as well at the market.
Yeah.
I had my story told. My story told. Is that the right term?
Not wrong.
It's not wrong. It just doesn't sound right. I had my story told. Yeah. No. At Varushka, and it was. I've had it done a couple of times. I love it as a mechanic at Empire. It's always really fun. Like in the real world, not very convinced by that sort of thing, but at Empire, love it. And I'll ask them really specific about question, and we'll talk about my character. Even other people have got to the point where they'll come over and they'll be like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't know you were doing this," and then leave. Like, it's this very hallowed thing that we all take very seriously. Is this heresy? Is it heresy?
We're quite orthodox, actually.
Varushka is notoriously orthodox because during some of the various schismy type things, when the Grey Pilgrims were out on the road, and they were telling, you know, various nations, you do this and we think that might be heresy or blasphemy or what have you. We were one of the few nations that were told, yeah, you're fine.
We're doing great.
You lot crack on.
It sounds very suspicious to me.
I'm not
I
saying
don't
it
know
wasn't
what you
intimidation
mean.
tactics.
I don't know
Very
what you mean.
suspicious. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, yeah, the nation that doesn't mind being referred to as very dour, the antisocial nation and proud, the kind of self-proclaimed weirdos of Empire. It's fantastic. Yeah. So why would you say, if you're thinking about Varushka, like what sort of thing would you, the sales pitch to someone that might be like, say, between like a really good nation like Navarre and Varushka, like how would you sway them over to Varushka?
I'd say Varushka is one of the more immersive nations because of that thread of ritual and of storytelling that runs kind of through the core of the nation. It's very easy to get yourself swept up in effectively living out something from a grim fairy tale. It has that. It has a very strong flavour because of the rich vein of influence that it draws from the fairy tales, from Eastern European myth and legend, that makes it very compelling as a nation to play in, and it's very easy to pick up what is going on in the nation and what Varushka is like as a nation, because it has that very kind of strong identity.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely one of the nations with the most sort of cohesive presence. I think, despite the fact that there are different groups and they all have different opinions and sort of different vibes, there is a presence of Varushka as a nation, and that is a presence that you will be a part of no matter sort of which group you are a member of. And you will kind of get involved in that and you will get immersed in that because so much of Varushka is that ritual, that storytelling, that warding. There are things that will just drag you into the story and will like pull you in and sit you down and just be like, have some hospitality, enjoy. It's really good. And from an OC perspective as well, I think it's like being a smaller nation, it's easy to get involved in game. Everyone's super lovely, out of character, and like really, really ready to help. And it's just a really kind of, I think the thing that sells Varushka is its strength as a whole nation, as well as the strength of the individual groups within the nation.
Yeah, I think you're describing
Absolutely.
a lot of intangibles there as well, which is one of the things that's kind of hard to get across with what makes LARP very special is that sense of community that you get, or being involved by hearing stories or being immersed within it and acting yourself onto that, right? Like you can put your own flair onto it by being one of these weird characters that walks around at night, like harassing people with weird stories about monsters in the dark and stuff. It's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It's also one of those things where, because so much of the nation is this element of like talking and bargaining and thinking, we've got quite a strong non-combat presence as well. And if like taking the battlefield isn't your idea of fun and you don't want to hit someone with a sword, there is so much game in the Varushka camp for you.
Absolutely, yeah. I found Varushka was very easy to get into as a nation. So I haven't got a group. I turned up to Varushka as a solo character, and before the evening was over on my first Friday, I was suddenly involved in half a dozen different things, just from having turned up and spoken to a few people, and suddenly off we go.
Yeah. I came in as a new player, started a group with some friends of mine, and then our group kind of got very adopted by the nation, and now we're very involved in all sorts of things, and we all have our different little areas, and it was very, even as a new player, it was intimidating, but once I sort of got over that initial hurdle, it was so easy to settle into, because it really is, like you say, it's got such a defined aesthetic and such defined sort of rules, and a defined kind of energy around it, that once you kind of figure that out and it clicks, you know exactly what to do.
Yeah, that's it's interesting. I think like the it can seem quite intimidating when you come into a nation sometimes, but one thing I've noticed is by talking to lots of different people who I consider to be like iconic characters, right? Like people that you go to a nation and you're like, they're very ubiquitous when I think about a nation with certain characters. It's quite interesting to see how, what's the right way to put this? Mortal and normal they are, right? Or how that moment where you're watching them and you're going, holy crap, look at that person doing what they're doing. That's amazing. They're sitting behind that going, oh my God, I'm actually doing it. Look at me doing the thing, right? And I think Varushka seems like a nation where if you want to give it a go, it sounds quite supportive if you're taking the idea of being a Varushkan seriously and want to give lots of game in that way, then it will be reciprocated in that process, right?
100%, yeah.
Absolutely. I found, what buying into that Varushkan character is so rewarding because the nation has such a rich kind of character behind it.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's something that you want to like just jump into and commit to, and the more you commit to it, the more fun you're going to have.
Yeah, it's interesting. I because of this the longest dark that we're in now, right? The epicest of the darkest of the longest darks, right? Yeah. Who knows? By the time we get this released, maybe everything will be sorted. We'll see. I've got a huge backlog of episodes now, so we'll see. We'll see. I'm so sorry if this is really depressing. If people are listening to this, and it's like, it's exactly the same, Dave. Nothing changed. We're still.
How could you say
down.
this?
Yeah, why are you even getting your hopes up, you ignorant fool? But God, I've lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Damn it.
By the time we start again, maybe people. I don't know.
It was talking about, like, I was talking to a friend of mine about my character, and like I had this very strange sensation of not feeling completely connected to my character, and I was like, who is this guy? And I felt very odd about it. I can't remember what the question was. It was like, oh, how would they react in this certain situation? It was a very offhand comment, which I thought about for like a long time afterwards. I don't know if it's the distance of being in the long dark or whatever that is, but I don't know. Like, what does my character actually think about this? Who are they now? Seems to be very hard concepts. Do you ever like how do you feel about you? You don't have to go into details, but how confident do you feel in your characters right now compared to maybe before? I'm not really sure where this question's going, but yeah, go ahead.
I went through a period where I didn't feel confident, but like I kind of disconnected for a little while, like sort of from the hobby, because there was no drive to make things for it or to like get things ready for it. But now I'm kind of getting back into it, and I've realized like just thinking about my character, it's really easy to just slip into his skin again. Like it's so easier than I was expecting, to be honest.
Right, so you're kind of like, are you writing icy letters, or are you just thinking about this, maybe crafting, that sort of thing?
Thinking idly, thinking about stuff I want to make, new kit stuff I want to make, like. But it's just fun speculating about what your character would do in certain situations, isn't it?
Maybe I should do more of this, like meditate on the idea of what would Gellert do in this situation and kind of think it through. It's not bad, huh?
Yeah, I'm in quite a similar boat of, once it became clear last year that there wasn't going to be anything happening for the year, I kind of almost just put Yulia back on a shelf for a bit.
Yeah.
I was like, right, there's not much point having her around kind of living in my head for a bit, because she's not going to be coming out till 2020 at the earliest, 2021 even at the earliest. So
it is 2021 right now, by the way, listener. I didn't record this in 2020 and you're listening to it now at some other point, all right? It's quicker than that. I won't say when, but it is 2020. We're in it, so to stop any mischaracterization there.
But yeah, so when spent a lot of time doing other stuff for a bit.
I've been playing a lot of Dungeons and Dragons recently, right?
Oh,
and this is what's got me
so
thinking about it so much. Is like I've played through. We did one campaign. We didn't finish a campaign. We got quite far into it, but I know that character like the back of my hand, right? Like I miss that character now still, and now we're doing a new character, and I'm just getting into that character, and it's really exciting. And we did one for the podcast. Actually, we recorded some D&D. Anyway, my idea of what character is changing dramatically, and I'm kind of keen to bring this over to Empire. I think I've been playing myself far too much on the field and would like to definitely maybe push that a bit more when we go back. I don't know how realistic that is, but to aim for.
Yeah, I mean, I find it's quite an interesting thing between Festlop and smaller games. I find in Festlops, because it's continuous and there's a lot going on, I play characters who are closer to me at Fest games, whereas at smaller games I'm more likely to play characters that are a bit further away from me and a bit less like what I'm like day to day.
Yeah, I think I am more likely to play characters who are quite different from myself in tabletop than I am in LARP, because I'm very conscious of the fact that I have to phys rep this character. But also, Fanya's gotten a lot more different from me than when I first started, because when I first started I was scared and I didn't know what I was doing. But as I've gotten sort of more comfortable, like, the character has gotten sort of further from me, and now it's like my whole physicality changes when I play her, which started off as a conscious choice, but now it's just something that I kind of slip into. And it's quite fun to kind of see that evolution and, like, build on that and build more layers of the character as I, like, continue to play her.
Yeah, do you have anything that's like... Do you have any kit that, like, really makes you... Is that, like... Because I found different bits of kit trigger memories of who the character is, and when I put them on or interact with them, it kind of comes back. Is there anything about your character that, like, a couple of things that maybe define your character? You don't have to be too detailed about it, but just general things that you have, maybe.
So for me, the two things that really get me kind of into the headspace fully at the start of an event is putting on the makeup. So my character's not lineage, and yet I've still made the choice to have a full face of makeup. So, you know, eyeliner, very bright, bold red lipstick, and scars down the cheeks.
Yeah, you are a visceral experience when you come across you. Like, it's a lot. It's you know what I mean? And you're like close too, right? Because you're like, bam, we're having a quick conversation. It's just like, wow, it's a lot to take in. It's a tour de force.
Thank you very much.
I don't know whether that was a compliment.
No,
I think it's a compliment. I agree.
I very much take that as a compliment, because when I came up with the character design for Yulia of what she was going to look like, I wanted her to be very kind of visually impactful, which is why I went for the heavy winged eyeliner, why I went for the very bright red lipstick, and why I went for the piece of kit that I think is probably her most iconic piece of kit, which is the coat.
For sure.
This kind of, you know, big bright red coat with the black lining, black fur trim, and black embroidery on it.
It's cool. It's really cool, and it's in fact, I think face paint and things like that, depending on your brief, right? But there's a lot you can get away with. Like, I was thinking about this in Navarre. A couple of people have like just striking something across, like battle makeup almost, but something just to, and it's quite interesting how those little markers really make a character stand out, like, and carry a lot of weight to them, like oh my god, like, holy shit, I'm a character in her story. Oh fuck, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, it wasn't my story at all. It was actually this person I'm talking to, you know.
For me, putting on Fanya's face is very important, because I do play a lineage character. She's a Naga, and I've got these scale prosthetics, and as soon as those go on, I'm like, she's here. I'm ready to go. It's like, I think, talking to some of my friends who play orcs, it's like, I think it's a similar thing to putting on the mask, where when that makeup goes on, and I see that very, very distinct change in the mirror, it makes it a lot easier to just kind of snap into character and just be ready to go. And then I add the Kokoshnik on the head, and I'm out there. I'm ready. The Boyar is in.
Kokoshnik is just superb.
What's the Kokoshnik?
Kokoshnik. It's a type of Russian kind of tiara, crown, headdress
kind of thing, yeah.
It's just like a sort of, like, shape on the top of the head, almost like a little sail. But they tend to be quite heavily embellished. And
it sounds... Where
They're
do
a
you
very traditional Russian thing.
Yeah.
where do you pick one of those up? Like,
I mean, I make mine with a bit of hot glue beads and determination, but
Yeah, I made mine with fabric, a bit of kind of buckram, which is like a stiff
yeah, I
fabric in
use a really
between
stiff interfacing.
beads and swearing.
Yeah, basically.
That's how I made my Kokoshnik.
Yeah. It's good though because I'm quite a short person and it adds about an extra 1.5 foot of height on my head, so helps with the intimidation factor.
like if people you're reacting to people like they're bears, right? Like you want to be as big as possible. So that
Basically,
helps.
it's the equivalent of a frilled lizard. Is the effect I'm aiming to give off.
Devastating. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I think it's finding kit. Like whenever I have a very jangly necklace that's made of shells, and I'm not a big fan of this necklace, but there's something about putting it on that just immediately makes me think like, okay, now it's game time. Maybe I should just like sit in my living room and get all my kit on and just potter around the house as Gellert for a while. I don't know. Maybe that's taking it too far.
Nah, live your dreams.
Yeah, I mean, at this stage in
Who's
this
gonna stop
lockdown,
you?
like,
It's not like you can leave the house and potter around, so you may as well do it at home.
no,
I
I had actually I had my boiler repaired today in my flat, and the guy, I was like, okay, we're gonna keep in separate rooms and all this stuff. Anyway, the guy, after he's done, he knocks on my my main door to my living room, opens it up. And I just realised, like, oh my god, my living room is not meant for guests. There's literally my LARP sword and swords, shield. What else is down here? There's a bunch of weaponry in the corner. And basically, that was because I was talking to a guy called Tim Baker. I think you might know him. He did one of the episodes with us. We were talking about like fighting techniques. So there I was in my living room, like he was talking to me over text, and I was like getting my weapon out, and I was like, you know. I had delusions of like making myself like iron by the time we get back to our first LARP event, which is never going to happen, but it's a nice dream to have occasionally to play around in the living room. So yeah,
Ambition is a virtue.
well, yeah, yeah. I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be interesting first event back and how different people approach getting back into the game.
Definitely.
And
see how many new people have picked it up as well, because we always pick up new players over the period between the autumn event and the winter event. It's been a very long time between the autumn event and the winter event this time, and I don't know what it's been like on the Navarre Facebook group, but certainly on the Varushkan one, we've had quite a steady stream, I'd say, of new people coming up saying, heard about this over lockdown, it sounds fun, wanted to join Varushka.
Yeah.
Any advice for a newbie?
We don't really actively recruit, so it's quite nice.
No, we don't. I don't know how they found us, but I'm very glad they have, because
I know.
more people.
I'm like I would consider myself to be like a LARP advocate now. Like when I talk to about people, I think there's still social hang-ups, but like I think lots of people are more willing to test those social boundaries that like maybe they think they have. And find something different, which I think I feel like from my very anecdotal small scale that our LARP is growing. We have, even doing the podcast, we have more downloads now than we ever have. It's not. I think this is just people that are just interested in learning about the hobby and getting involved, and just I think lockdown's one of those things where it's just, God, who doesn't want to interact with people right now and go to a field and do whatever part of the game? Everyone has their part of the game that there's their special thing, right? That can be going around and whacking nerds with sticks, or it could be like playing political PvP with people, or that might be being a healer, or whatever it is that you do, right? But I think there's like everyone's keen to jump into it, right, and get back onto the game.
Yeah. I find as it's starting to get to the point where maybe there could be an event on the horizon. Some of the background wheels are starting to spin back up of, okay, events could happen, starting to make plans for things that I want to do at the next event whenever it may happen. People I want to talk to, plans I want to try and enact, which sounds more sinister than I made it to.
It sounds really sinister. That sounded really sinister, by the way. And by the way, we're using webcams, by the way. She looked, for that second, just as sinister as it sounded. She went off, her eyes went very cold and distant, and she was like notching up people that had to go. You know, it was very gangster. It was scary.
Yeah, the hit list came out. Everything.
Yeah.
No, there is no hit list.
Not anymore. Now you've completed it. Yep, that's the last one, everyone. Now I can be a normal, nice Varushkan. Yeah. Yeah, I've never seen a death list, but I've heard of death lists existing, and just the fact they do exist is it's a wonderful thing. I think one day, I shouldn't say this on a podcast, but like, it would be fun to be assassinated for the right reason, right?
Being assassinated has long been a goal of mine in LARP. It's never happened.
Yeah, it can't
I've never actually been assassinated. I've had people think I was assassinated and send out a search party for me, which I then joined because the search party went past.
Next best thing.
What's going on?
It was pretty funny.
There's a missing person, and you're like, oh, I'd better help. What do they look like?
Yeah, like I saw my group go past, like heavily armed. This was at a different game. This wasn't Empire. This was at Odyssey, in fact. One of PD's previous games. But yeah, my group went past, like heavily armed, and I thought, oh, something's up. Better go with them and find out what it is. And then like it joined the back of the group. They turned around and went, we were looking for you. We thought you were dead. What? You
know you've really made it when someone thinks you might have been killed and sends out a search party. That's when you're really, that's when you're cherished, you know?
It's pretty good, but I still want to hit the goal of, being actually assassinated.
Yeah, and it being, even if the hit is badly done, right? I don't mind being killed by incompetence, but the reason why they killed me has to be worthwhile, right? Like, there has to be that. Well, there's no other way. We have to kill him, right?
It's about the intent,
right? It's about like the only way we're gonna sort this problem out is just by making him not a problem anymore. That's a very deeply respectful thing. But I hope the person that does end up doing it would be very matter of fact about it. I want a professional, goddammit.
They just come up to you and go, nothing personal.
Yeah.
Impale.
Yeah. Paralysis. All right, everyone just wail on him. You know.
The pro way to do it is paralyze, impale.
Mm.
Well, hold on. Shh. All right, I'm not advertising. The subject of poisons came up in the hospital episode, and we went to a very strange conversation where, like, we do not want to advocate the use of poisons, but if you were looking into deadly poisons, here is a list of how you might find them, and let's not even talk about the Druge ones, which most of you wouldn't have even known about, but now they do know about, having listened to it. It's like, poison terrifies me.
Ugh.
What's that?
I remember that time in the hospital when we didn't know what the Druge poison did and there was nothing we could do.
Yes.
What?
I remember hearing about that.
So you were like, in the hospital, poison victim came in, you're like, what is this? And you can't figure it out.
Yep. There were people running all around the field trying to get the information and get things like analysed. It was a whole thing.
Quick, get a day magician!
Yep, literally.
Is this why you're like, if you're drinking ever and you see a referee moving around, that's when you should be really careful, right? Like, that's when you should really be like, I'm gonna sit this drink out, you know, like
just put it down for half an hour.
Yeah.
I think that's the half-life of the poison of most.
It's very
of the
short.
Well known.
It's very short. Whatever it is, it's like
half an hour, might be less.
It might be less. So you really have to get it done when it's happening. So, yeah. It makes me want to kill somebody. Like, this is what this conversation's doing. I should talk to Varushkans because it's turning a very peaceful, like, nice person into someone that's like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if... So we get the alchemist in one tent, right? Like, nearby. And then, like, you can be serving drinks like it's no big deal. And then, bam. Yeah, God.
For more conversations like this, join us at the Varushkan Hearthfire.
I know.
Great time.
Well, generally, I am impressed by Varushka that you've completely usurped my expectations. And honestly, like, a lot of the answers I've got from other people have been, like, totally the opposite. Where you've been, like, the whole dower thing, the marches specifically, were like, we're not actually like that. And you guys are like, yeah, that we're exactly like that. That's, like, we're the dowerists.
Yeah, but like that doesn't mean we don't want to role play with you. It's
Yeah,
just
that's
that
the-
there is a
that's-
very kind of serious face on the nation, that kind of spooky, intimidating vibe. It doesn't mean don't approach us. It doesn't mean we don't want you to approach us and role play with us. We absolutely love people coming in and kind of encountering that and seeing how people react.
It really means the opposite. Come and approach us and interact with us being all spooky and weird and dour in the corner. It's fun. It'll be fun for both parties.
So it makes me think of how the orc camp is something that should be respected, and it's not like a tourist attraction, right? You shouldn't go to the orc camp because you just want to go and look at all the orcs, right? Like, but you should respect like the nation that you're walking into. In fact, it's quite interesting to see when people don't respect the nation that you're walking into, like someone shaking hands with Urizen, or interrupting someone's story time, or like any of these other kind of like traditional things. It's kind of fun, like exploring those, and what I mean is, it's more like having done it. I think a taboo when I went to visit Varushka. Now I want to be like deeply respectful when I go, like very fucking respectful. I would love to find some game where some spooky shit's happening, and I just need to get like information and just like ask people so they can just riff off that and go nuts. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, I've always found there's always, and this is for any nation, there's always a lot of gain to be had by engaging with their national traditions, and also with your own, and kind of exploring where the two national traditions line up, where there are clashes, that kind of intersecting of different national traditions, half magic outlooks, that kind of thing, is something that I absolutely adore doing at Empire.
Yeah, Empire cultural exchange is like my favourite thing. I love when people come to the Varushkan camp and they don't necessarily know the rules. I love going to a different nation's camp and not necessarily knowing the rules, or knowing them but not understanding them. It's fun.
Even RPing that you don't understand them.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Like, if you have that sort of moment of like, this isn't how we do it, but I know it's how you do it, so I'll do it. Like, it's fun.
It's funny watching someone being like really like racist culture, xenophobic towards your nation, right? Like they'll be like talking to their friend, oh, you know, these Navari are like this or whatever, and it's just like, I can hear you, by the way, like I'm gonna answer that, like we're not like that. That's a very bad thing. Just because the street is called Murder Alley, there's very few people get murdered here. Very few. Like, you'll be surprised at how few people get murdered here, you know?
Yeah, there can be some fun in that. I find there's a lot more fun when you have that kind of slightly more respectful kind of clash of cultures, and cultural exchange. That's where I've had a lot more fun. So, for instance, my character is in a relationship with a Dornish woman, and exploring like the different half magics and approaches to romance and that kind of thing has produced some fabulous little moments.
I've said they're very different nations, aren't they?
Yeah.
They are very different nations, but trying to kind of intersect the two is just, it's so much fun.
That's awesome.
One of my favourite little ones is Freeborn in Varushka, because in Varushka you offer hospitality, but in the Brass Coast you have to pay for everything. But if you pay for the hospitality, it's not a gift. So there's this fun little sort of clash of like,
clash between
I want to give you money for this, and it's like, well, you can't give me money for it because it's hospitality.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's fun. It's one thing that's really an absolute treat, is getting to like talk to people from their nation and kind of like get these little cultural nuances, whereas a player you can kind of read off the wiki, but like you're more aware of in the field. But to hear people talk about their own nation in detail it's an absolute treat. Yeah, is there anything that you want to say, maybe closing up, about Varushka that maybe we've glossed over that you'd want to talk about? Maybe is there anything weird that you do that you want to talk
Been
about?
through most of it.
We've covered quite a lot of the weird stuff. I mean, there are a few kind of national stereotypes that exist that we haven't mentioned. So, like the reputation for being quite cruel people. That's a bit of a rep that we have.
Yeah, we would call it pragmatic.
Yeah. I would say like can be cold, I don't think there's like leagues of people that are out there going, "Oh, let's talk shit about Varushka," right? Like, it's definitely not a nation where I've heard like people like giving them loads of shit.
No, but
but like cold, pragmatic, but very, very friend. On the flip side of that, very friendly. As soon as there's certain, like you said, and it's interesting talking about the idea of like accepting like hospitality is the way in. I've done that and not realized that was what I was doing. So culturally blind to it, but taking full advantage of it as a process is really, really fun. Yeah, very cool. Well, thank you very much. Thank you to our patrons as well, who I always forget to thank. So thank you very much for supporting us during this very grim time. Maybe we can close up. Is there a call and answer in Varushka? Like, we have like strength to the Empire, strength to Navarre. There's a bunch of like...
You've got a couple.
Yeah. Which one do you want to go with?
There's the Schlag to Fear the Wolves. That one's good.
The Slackers.
The Slackers, indeed.
Yeah, I can't think of the Slacker as anything else now. That's
now.
They're the Slackers.
Now.
I'm so sorry. I've made a huge mistake, and I'm really sorry to everyone. That is a Schlachter. It's a very respectable role, and no one has the right to call you anything other than that.
Yeah, do you have a favourite?
The anticipation is killing me.
Yeah, partly it's trying to remember a lot of them because it's been so damn long. Yeah, so I think when you hear the sound of the Schlachter coming,
that's a good one.
Repeating that one.
So is it a call and response? How does it work?
It's kind of call and response. You'll have somebody kind of yelling it, and then everybody yells it, but it's the same phrase. It's not like strength to the Empire, strength to Navarre, where there's a distinct call and response. It's somebody says the phrase, and then everybody repeats it together as one.
CJ, would you like to give it a go, and then me and Emily will repeat it in a Varushkan fashion, and then we'll end the episode that way in a really smooth, professional, not drawn out in any way type way.
It'll be beautiful.
I won't be able to give it full Varushkan beans because the walls of my flat are not. I don't think they're soundproof enough for full.
No, and people listen to this on headphones, so we shouldn't.
Yeah.
We should
don't blow out mics.
Don't.
I'm going
like
to move away from my microphone to do this, but the neighbours can deal with it.
Okay. All right. We'll get. Okay. Do you want to prep me on what I'm going to be saying because I don't want to mess it up?
You're literally just going to be repeating the exact words I say.
Yeah, you say that.
Just hear the sound of the Schlachter are coming.
Okay.
Schlachter, not slackers.
I know, I wrote it down again just then. Like, okay, let's give it a go.
Hear the sound of the Schlachter coming.
Hear the sound of the Schlachter coming.
Nailed it.
What? Why do you want Hoff?
He bought a curse here, didn't he? Evil he is.
Rumour has it, he's the one who controls that monster.
Yeah, he's got it back there in a cage, I hear. Sends it out to do his bidding, he does.
Granted, he does come across as a bit of a prick, but what makes you think that?
Everyone's talking about it. He shows up here, Mr. won't take no for an answer, then all of a sudden people start getting snatched up.
Common sense, isn't it?
Took my Sally, it did. Now we're going to take what's owing.
You can't mean the girl, Ada.
Eye for an eye, that's what I say.
Aye!
We have to warn them. Quick, follow me.